So all of this was starting to motivate me to, it's time to explore a bit deeper and go further as well.
Off-Gassing, a scuba podcast with host Nick Hogel. Each person's journey through this sport varies from one person to the next. For some, it is an easy transition. For others, it's about overcoming fear. Smita Jairam did not let her fear of deep water overtake her, and it's amazing to hear about her journey. From open circuit to closed circuit, the rewarding feeling of conservation work, Malaysia's must-go-to spots for diving, advice for overcoming fear, and much more. Please enjoy. Smita, how are you doing this Sunday afternoon?
Hi, Nick. Oh, my goodness. Well, a little bit tired, but glad it's Sunday. I've packed for my next dive trip, which is really good. Yeah, but it's been a crazy year. I can't believe it's already September, but otherwise, yeah, I'm doing good. And thank you so much for having me on this podcast.
Yeah, no, I'm really, really excited to hear your story. And also, you just got back from a trip, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then you're already packing for the next one?
Yep.
Oh, okay. We'll get into that in a minute. So the first question I wanted to ask you is, tell me how and why you got into scuba diving. Tell me about that first experience. Tell me about, the class, just the whole vibe.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so cool. So it was about 10 years ago. It was exactly 10 years ago in 2013. I decided that I needed to get over my fear of deep water because I was terrified of it. I was terrified of the ocean. I wouldn't even snorkel. I'd do nothing. And because I started becoming a bit of an adrenaline junkie, I was hiking a lot. I was doing high altitude trekking, rock climbing. I said, this should be next. So I was, it's like, we go high, let's go deep as well. So I was living in Australia at the time. I was living in Melbourne, and I was going to come back to Malaysia around, I think it was October that year in 2013. And I thought I would do my open water then. Nice tropical area and all of that. But then my friend convinced me, who was going to travel with me, she's like, no, do your open water first. And then when we get to Malaysia, we can do some fun dives. Word of advice, don't really do your open water in the middle of Australian winter in Melbourne because it sucks. It just absolutely sucks. It was so cold. I did the pool sessions and I was freaking out. It was a huge class. There was like 12 people there with 2 instructors. I didn't know what I was doing. And every time we had to go underwater, I just popped back up because I was so scared. So one of the instructors had to pull me aside and calm me down. And then we had to get through all the skills, like take off your mask and lose your reg, find it back, remove and replace your weight belt and the correct finning and all of that. So I needed the special extra attention. So I did the pool sessions in the dive center in Melbourne. And then the following weekend, we were supposed to go into the ocean. And again, so this is winter in Australia. So I know everyone thinks Australia is sunny and all, but when you go to southern parts of Australia, it's not during winter. Yeah, it's cold and it's miserable. And I had this 7 mil wetsuit. When you put it on, you're kind of like Michelin Man. You can't really move. It was so uncomfortable. So the following week, we were supposed to go to along the coast in Mornington Peninsula, which is actually a beautiful area. It's about an hour outside of Melbourne. It's got beautiful vineyards and cute little country towns and everything. But that's also where a lot of beginner divers who are training in Melbourne go. And I did go diving afterwards there, and it's quite nice. There's quite a lot of unique wildlife. You can see weedy sea dragons, and there's a ray that lives under the pier and everything. But because I was so freaked out after the pool sessions, I faked a cold, and I couldn't make it for the open water session, so I didn't go. So then what I did was like, oh yeah, I'm going to Malaysia in a couple of months' time, so can I just do my open water sessions there? So that's what I did. So like I had a 2-month break, then I came to Malaysia, I went to Tioman, and I did the open water there. And again, I was freaking out. I had to hold the instructor's hand the whole time. And then like after the third dive, she's like, do you think you could let go of my hand now? Yeah, I was so scared, but I got through it. That was really good. And then after that, I was like, right, now that I've qualified, I must do this more often. So, and I love travel. So I was traveling quite a bit. So I try to attach like a dive trip to every other trip that I wanted to do. So right after that, I think a couple months after that, I went to Tanzania because I wanted to climb Mount Kilimanjaro. And I was looking at the map. I was like, oh, you could go diving in Zanzibar. So I did do my first open water dives post course there. And then I experienced vertigo underwater because I didn't equalize properly.
Oh.
So yeah, interesting experience. So then I freaked out, did the dive, and then did 2 dives, and I canceled the third dive. I'm like, no, I'm not doing this. And then after that, like I didn't dive for about, I think six months. And then I went to, and I was back in Australia, and I went to Byron Bay again in the middle of winter. But Byron Bay is absolutely beautiful. There's a dive site there called Julian's Rocks, which is where like the cold water meets the tail end of the Great Barrier Reef, the southern part. So you get all the tropical coral life, and you get the large pelagics. Like we were surrounded by pregnant nurse sharks. It was crazy. It was so amazing. And that's when I was like, yeah, I really want to do this. I want to continue doing this. And then what happened was 2 months later, because remember I said I was a bit of an adrenaline junkie. So I was also surfing quite a bit. And then I had a really bad surfing accident where the fin ripped open my leg.
Ooh.
So yeah, it was bad. I couldn't walk for 2 months. So I had to take a break from everything for another 6 months. And so after that, when I recovered, I somehow ended up in Bali and Gili Islands in Indonesia. And I thought, right, you know what? Let's do my advanced open water. So I did that, and again, freaking out, scared, because I hadn't dived in so long. I had to do the course in the 15-liter tanks. Yeah, exactly. When you think about where I am now, which I'll get to, it's like, oh my God, this girl's crazy. So I had to do all of that in the bigger tanks. And then after that, I did a liveaboard on Great Barrier Reef. So finally started enjoying diving again. And then within that year, so this by now it's 2015, right? So end of 2015, I moved back to Malaysia. And one of the reasons was like, I do want to dive more. And living in Australia and diving there is quite expensive. And then flying to Asia is quite expensive. And it was just one of the minor reasons. The major reasons, of course, was family and livelihood and life and everything. So then once I moved back here, I started diving a lot more regularly. Like I was going to Thailand. I was diving locally in Tioman and Tenggol Island and Perhentians, and a lot in Sabah as well. Actually, most of my diving I ended up doing in Sabah because I was working. I'm an environmental consultant, so I was working a lot in Sabah.
Oh, okay.
Flying in, flying out. Yeah, so which is great. So like weekends, I'd always I'd be stuck in the middle of nowhere. And the weekends, I'd just like either hitchhike on the minivans or take a bus down to Semporna. And I'd go diving on the weekend. Saw my first whale shark there.
Awesome.
Yeah, it was amazing. So that's when I started diving really a lot. And I hit 100 dives by 2017. I did my naked, 100 dive and like that. It was on my birthday as well. So it was like birthday dive in my birthday suit, which is pretty cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And then I wanted to get into marine conservation as well. Cause like I love the ocean. And I just wanted to give back and being an environmentalist. So I started volunteering at Track Borneo, which is based in Pompom Island in Semporna. And what they do is they're restoring a coral reef that was destroyed by fish bombing by the local communities because of, a lot of marginalization and a lot of negative impacts on livelihoods. Like the communities there are stateless, and their homes were pretty much like the islands they were living in pretty much taken over by resorts. So yeah, they face a lot of issues, and a lot of the people in Semporna are from these islands as well. So they resorted to fish bombing, and you could dive and you could hear bombs go off as well. It's not as bad as it used to be from what I heard. Like before, you could hear like 10, 15 on one dive. And we could hear on average like one per dive. And also like during COVID, when things opened up a little bit, I went back to Sabah to dive and I could hear it in Sipadan as well, just really, really shocking.
Oh, wow.
Because, because all the resorts were closed, people didn't have jobs. So, you need to eat, right? So they were resorting back to that. So I really got into marine conservation. And then I also became a reef check volunteer, so an eco diver where you volunteer to do like reef surveys around Malaysia. So I've contributed a little bit to the data that's reported to the Ministry of Fisheries, I think that's the one, and Marine Parks.
Awesome.
Yeah, so it was a really cool. And at one point I did think, okay, I want to do a dive. I want to become a dive master because like where else would you go with this? But then I met an instructor in Philippines who was like, why don't you get into technical diving? And then I was like, what's that? And then he sketched out that diagram that says, okay, so you can start by doing, you go down deep to 45 meters on open circuit. And I was like, what's open circuit? And he said, when you're breathing with regulators. Okay. And then after that, after 45 meters, you need to start adding helium into the mix. So then you go into trimix. So you go down to 60 meters. Okay. So then he explained all of that. Then he's like, but helium is really expensive. So you really want to think about closed circuit. And then I'm like, what's that? and I've never heard of a rebreather or any of that at that point in time. So he like drew the two paths for me and he's like, you should really consider this. I'm like, okay, cool. Didn't tell me about, what a massive financial investment it would become. And so this instructor, he was diving side mount while he was taking us on dives and stuff because I did my nitrox with him. So I was like, that looks really cool. And then he was like, yeah, this can be an entryway into tech because you learn how to dive with multiple tanks and all that stuff. So I was like, okay, interesting. And then end of 2018, I had a 2-month career break. So I went back to Trek Borneo and I was volunteering there for I think about 1.5 months. And then, because it's a really small island, it's only 2.5 kilometers around and there's 2 resorts and our conservation project there. You really get island fever after a while. And at one point you're like, just get me off of this island right now before I kill somebody. Because it's there's nothing left to talk about. The internet reception is so bad. We started making up stories to keep ourselves entertained. And this isn't working anymore. Get me off of this island right now. And then I had a few more weeks before I started working. So I decided by that time I'd also joined this Facebook group called Girls That Tech Dive, which is an offshoot of Girls That Scuba. And so I was putting up there and I was really curious about tech diving because I'd heard a little bit about it. So I was asking advice. And then through Girls That Tech Dive, I met an instructor. Her name is Teresa, who was based in Gili Trawangan at that time. And she said, if you want, you can come here and we can do a side mount course. And that gets you into how you feel about tech and things like that. So I was like, okay, cool. So I did that. And then because Gili Trawangan is like this tech island, right? It's full of tech divers and tech centers, and they're very strict about their protocol. So it's as soon as you get into water, you're doing a negative entry. And so when you're, first time with 2 tanks, when you do a negative entry, you face plant into the sand at 30 meters. And that's exactly what happened to me. And it's what is buoyancy? I had buoyancy. I don't have it anymore. So did the course with her. And then I impulse bought a side mount harness as well from one of the instructors there. And then I told myself, you know what, I'm going to keep this up because I invested money in it and I'm really, I do want to explore what's deeper. And then also what motivated me was diving around Sabah because those islands are quite deep compared to what you find in Peninsula Malaysia. So there are walls that start at 30 meters.
Oh, wow.
And you're just hanging off that edge and looking down and you're knocked off your head and you're I really want to go down there and see what else is there. So all of this was starting to motivate me to, it's time to explore a bit deeper and go further as well. So then, so I started wanting to do my tech courses, and then COVID hit, which really sucked. And so things got on hold for about 2 years. And then last year, end of 2021, things opened up. By that time, this instructor who I trained with, Teresa, she had gone back to Europe. So I met another instructor who is based in Bali, and she told me, okay, you need to get back into it. just do every single dive in side mount so that you get used to, your trim and buoyancy is perfect, so that we just got to add the third tank and we can do the course, which is the advanced nitrox deco procedures down to 45 meters and such. So everything went really good. And this is where it gets really, really sad and frustrating. So the day before I was supposed to fly off to Bali to do my course, I got COVID.
Oh.
So it was terrible. And then she was also actually planning to leave Bali for good. So I was going to be her last student. So it was just really, really sad. And then she said, okay, I'm going to return you your money because I don't want to hold you back. I don't know when I'm going to be teaching again. I need to settle a lot of life situations. So, if you find another instructor, please go for it. So I said, okay. And then I was recovering from COVID. I took 2 months off diving because everyone's like, your lungs are going to be totally screwed up. So see how you go with your breathing and all of that. And so I got back. So I took 2 months off. And then I happened to know another tech instructor based in Malaysia, Faris, who is amazing. He's such a great guy. If anybody wants to go tech in Malaysia, I would recommend him. He's such a patient instructor and really works with you, and because he's not based on the island, his center is called Nomad Scuba, so he's basically nomadic. So whichever center on whichever island that can support tech, if you want to go there, he'll take you there. So we could spend some time like practicing skills and things like that. So I contacted him and he said, yep, I'm happy to take you on board. So then, this is again where it gets a little bit frustrating. So we went to Tioman like end of September last year, and we did 4 of the course dives. On the last day of the dive, we were supposed to do the last 2 dives. We had bad weather, so we had to cancel. Yeah, I was like, am I ever going to get my tech certs? And so we had to come back to KL, and then he's like, look, just take a break, take a breather. We'll find another slot. We'll do a day trip to Tengol, which is, you can do an easy day trip from KL. We can do that. So don't stress about it. So within 3 weeks, we managed to do the day trip, and then I finally got tech certified. And it took us a while to find, because he's like, I really want you to experience going down to 45 meters, because we hadn't been able to do that yet. We were just doing like deco dives at like 30 to 35 meters, and so that I could get the hang of going into deco and doing the deco stops and things like that. But he's like, I really want you to get to 45 meters and see how you feel, how the narcosis is and everything. So the boat drove around for a little bit until we found the point. And in Tengol, Tengol's beautiful. It's one of my favorite dive sites in Malaysia. But like the one site we went to where it was 45 meters, it's just sandy bottom. Like there's nothing but sand. And so we went down and we were like going down. Now, like you see your dive computer going 29, 30, 31, 32, 33. You're like, oh my God. And it hits 40 and you're like, oh my God, I feel like a tech diver because I've gone so deep. And this could be me being narked as well. And then we finally hit 45 meters, which is a sandy bottom. And then he was like, all right, great. Now switch on your torch. And I'm like, I'm doing awesome. This is so great. He's like, he's signaling to me, switch on your torch. And this went on for a while. And he's like, you're narked, right? I'm like, and then I was like, oh yeah, let me find my torch. And so, so then that's when I got my tech qualification. And then towards the end of the year, I decided to go back to Gili Trawangan to get some tech fun dives in to practice and things like that. And then what happened was that one of the days that I was on the boat, they have a special tech boat that goes from Gili Trawangan to the walls along Lombok. So if you know the geography, right, the 3 Gili Islands are just off the north coast of Lombok. And along the coast of Lombok, right, there are walls that drop down to 200 meters. And they are beautiful. So like that's where a lot of the tech divers go for their 100-meter dives and things like that. So we went there. And I was the only diver on the boat. There was 4 of us. I was the only one who was going on side mount on open circuit. The other 3 guys were like in their super cool dry suits and their rebreathers. And I felt really, really left out. I felt so left out. And so, and then like the other 2 guys went on the rebreather. And then the guy that I was diving with, he was on his rebreather as well. But we followed my table, so my deco time. So we followed all my deco stops, my dive plan, everything. So we got up a little bit later. And then I was like, so when do I get started on that? And I was pointing at the rebreather. And I was joking. I wasn't serious about it. And Sam Mason, who is the instructor there, who's a rebreather, the JJ rebreather instructor, I think he does like level 2 or level 3, I can't remember. And he was like, oh, you're interested? Cool. Let's talk about it later. I was like, okay. And then he sat me down and he pulled out a piece of paper, put a lot of numbers with a lot of zeros on it and said, this is how much it's going to cost you. And I have availability in a month's time. After that, I'm leaving the island. So you let me know whether you want to do this course or not. So I was so tempted. I spent 3 weeks thinking about it. And I thought, you know what, screw it. Let's do it. I asked a lot of people. I asked this panel of friends and instructors. And they're like, look, you got the opportunity. He's a great instructor. He's absolutely awesome. Fantastic. Like, he's got such a good teaching style. He's really firm. He's really strict, but he's so supportive and encouraging. Like, every time you make a mistake, he'll explain to you why you did what you did wrong, why you did it, and how you can overcome it. So I think I wouldn't have passed if it was any other instructor. So I came back earlier this year. So that was end of Jan, and I did the course. I did the JJ rebreather course with him, and it was the hardest thing I've ever done. Yeah, and it was going back to thinking back to 10 years ago when I did open water, and buoyancy is all over the place. Because now you can't use your lungs, right? You are balancing a counter lung because it's closed circuit and your wing. And so how do you maintain your buoyancy? You can't use your lungs anymore. So how do you adjust that to find that right point? How do you maintain your loop volume so it doesn't go crazy and starts lifting you up? And then how do you do your ascent safely, especially when you're in deco, because you have to maintain your ceilings and stuff. So it was a really difficult course, and everybody I talked to, they're like, the course is not fun. It's the hardest thing we've ever done. Like, people have lost SMBs, people have lost their reels. So, and people have had to bail out, they've flooded their rebreathers, everything. So yeah, so it was interesting to have that experience sharing with people as well, and feel like, oh, I'm not totally terrible. Like, this is pretty normal. And then the last dive, actually, like when he came to me, we were at 7 meters during our deco stop. He shook my hand and he said through the mouthpiece, like, congratulations. And I actually responded, really? Are you sure? You're passing me? And he was like, yes, you did good. I'm like, okay. Yeah, so now I'm totally addicted to rebreather diving, and I've done about 20 hours since my course. So one thing we need to celebrate this week, I'm finally buying my unit.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, because I met a guy when I was last in Gili, which was about 2 weeks ago, and he's selling his unit, and it's in excellent condition. So we had a little business arrangement, so. Yeah, so basically, I think by the end of this week, that unit's mine.
Oh, awesome.
So super exciting, yeah.
The JJ?
Yes, yeah.
Cool.
And because I was just going back there this year, like anytime I had a short break or I had a business trip in Indonesia and I could tag on going to Gili, Trawangan. So I had been renting the unit, which eventually starts getting expensive. So I get it when they say, oh, you should just buy the unit and train with it from the get-go, but it's such a huge investment.
Yeah, no, definitely.
So I'm kind of glad the way I did it, because I felt like, because again, like nobody, when it comes to tech, right, nobody really talks about how much money you're going to invest in it. And it is a very expensive hobby, but it makes sense because it is so dangerous. So you want to invest in the best equipment and the best training to keep yourself safe so you can really enjoy, seeing all the awesome stuff that's quite deep, and you can hang out for as long as you want, or as long as your limitations. In terms of the rebreather, it would be a scrubber time, and then your deco time as well. So it makes sense. So I've been trying to reframe it in my head that I'm not just randomly spending money, I'm investing in myself. Yeah, because it's like you're emotionally attached to money. So it's like, okay, I'm investing in myself and I'm really enjoying this. And I'm finally getting, relatively okay at it. Like every trip I learn something, and the instructors there are awesome. They're so supportive. They're so helpful. And we've been doing these training drills, because initially my ascents in the blue were terrible. So how to even deploying your SMB on the rebreather is so different when you're doing it, when you're with regulators and everything, because you have to use your inflator hose of your wing, because there's nothing to blow out air into the SMB, right? So you have to use your inflator hose and blow all the air out from your wing into the SMB. And then you lose buoyancy, right? So you have to quickly inflate yourself back up. So it's a lot of these little movements that you have to start, getting muscle memory for. And initially it was terrible. Now I feel like it's slowly getting better, but we're still on the improvement path. So this year actually, it has been a lot of traveling for, this year I think I've only done technical dives, both open circuit and closed circuit. And my next trip, actually, I'm going to Malta because I'm traveling to the UK for work. Yeah, I've never dived in Malta, so it's going to be something new. So, yeah.
So, quick question. So, you are from Malaysia originally. Whereabouts?
So my story is interesting. So I was born here. Originally, my mom's hometown is in the center of Johor, a town called Kluang, and that's where she grew up. And my dad is from India. So I was born in Johor, and then because my dad was working in India at the time, I grew up there from the time that I was a baby until I was about 6. And then my dad got a job in Chicago in the US, so we moved there until I was about 9.5, 10, and then we came back. So, and then I was in KL from that time, finished high school here, and then I went to Singapore for university. Then came back for 3 years to work, and then I was bored, and I'm like, I want to go somewhere, and I ended up in Australia. Okay. And then I was there for a really, really long time, and then it started it was a combination of I think Australia's run its course for me. Had some family things going on here, and where do I see a better quality of life for myself? And came back, and I've been back ever since, and been super happy about it. Yeah.
Oh, I absolutely love Malaysia. I'm trying to figure out how to stay here and not be in the current job that I'm in. Obviously I moved here for a work visa, but I'd like to get more back into scuba diving. So as soon as my contract's up, and I've made definitely since I've been here a lot of contacts. So hopefully something pans out that I'll be able to stay in Malaysia, because just everything about this place I absolutely love, and I haven't even really explored that much of the diving side.
Oh my God.
I know,
Dude.
I know. Actually, oddly enough, the only place that I've been diving in Malaysia is Langkawi, which is not known for its diving. So
I was gonna say,
but I do actually have a trip planned to Tiamen in October, which it's right before monsoon season, so hopefully everything pans out. But me and my girlfriend are actually taking a fundamentals course from an instructor in Singapore is coming up there, so I'm actually really excited about.
Okay.
Yeah, it should be super cool. Well, let me ask you another question. Can you pinpoint I don't know if it's the exact moment, but so from the beginning of your journey, there was a lot of times that you were scared underwater. Can you pinpoint the time where it flipped for you and you knew? Because going from being scared in the water to where you're at right now is a huge accomplishment. So can you pinpoint where and when it happened?
I think it's there wasn't an exact point it flipped. I think it was very gradual. So I would say the first time I definitely felt really excited and really enjoying it was in Byron Bay at Julian's Rocks, because it is so beautiful there. And that was when I started getting really comfortable, and I was dive number 10 or 11 after open water. And then when I was at Great Barrier Reef, actually, so I was still very apprehensive during my advanced open water, which was 6 months after that Byron Bay trip. But 2 weeks after that, my advanced open water, I did the liveaboard in Great Barrier Reef, which is really great because it's like a hop on, hop off. So it was really budget friendly for backpackers and such. And I really enjoyed that. I think it was the Great Barrier Reef that flipped it for me. Because after that, within a year, I was back in Malaysia, and then the season hadn't started here yet. So I went to Thailand, to Koh Lipe, which is actually just north of.
Yeah, I've been there.
It's really nice. So I think it was that both the Great Barrier Reef in February 2015, and then Koh Lipe almost a year later, which really it did it for me. I'm this is it. This is what I really want to do, and I really enjoy it.
Oh yeah. No, I love Koh Lipe, and it's super close to me. Which center did you go out of there?
I think it was Davy Jones.
Oh, okay.
Davy Jones, yeah.
Cool. I've been speaking to Tim Lawrence, I believe that's his name, is like the owner of that place, and because I think he's based out of Koh Tao, and then they have another facility down there, and because I was wondering, because I reached out to a few shops, because obviously I'm a side mount diver. I reached out to a few shops before I went to Koh Lipe, and I was like, hey, can you accommodate side mount? And there's still a lot of places that don't, and a lot of people were like, oh well, we don't offer the training, and I was like, I don't need the training. I'm like, I have everything I need. All I need is 2 tanks. Like, that's all. Can you accommodate in terms of, can I do side mount off of the boat? And I just didn't get like the warmest receptions from the places that I reached out to. So I just was like, okay, I'll go there and do a single tank fun, which is absolutely amazing. Like, I still love single tank back mount fun diving. I'll never go back on that. So, but no, that's awesome. So out of all the places, if you were to recommend one place, or I don't know if you can recommend one place in Malaysia, where should I go?
Sabah, hands down. You have to go to Sabah. You have to go around the islands in Semporna. So Semporna itself is not the greatest place. It's because it is one of the poorest areas in Malaysia. But it's the people there are absolutely friendly and really warm and welcoming. And because I have spent so much time there, I feel really at home there. But the islands, once you get out of Semporna and you get to the islands like Pom Pom and what are the other ones? Pandanan, Kalapuan, all which towards the east, towards Philippines. And then you can also go south to Mabol and Kapalai, and then eventually the Sipadan. Of course, Sipadan now is it's a bit like they have changed the way they do the permits. You can only do 2 dives a day. Like, I went there back when you could do 4 dives a day. So I'm still like, I feel special. But definitely, like Sabah is, it's so stunning. It's so different from Peninsula as well, because you get so many, especially if you're into macro, there's so many interesting critters there. And also because I think like you do see a bit of fish bombing impacts, but you can also see the restoration efforts happening. So that's pretty cool. And being there also was where it really motivated me to get into marine conservation. Like, there's so much potential here to really help out. So I would definitely say Sabah, and I would love to go tech diving in Sabah because there is so much to explore. Like I was saying, there are some walls that just start at 70 meters. And last December, actually, my friend who's a tech diver, we both did a buddy dive to about 45 meters around Pom Pom Island and Mata King. Oh my God, it's so stunning. It is so stunning. The just large schools of fish, huge coral fans, mind-blowing. Yeah, you have to go to Sabah. Oh, I would say, yeah.
Awesome. No, and to be honest, actually, so I met, I'm assuming you know him, Robin from track. And,
oh, yes. One of my good friends. Yes.
No, I literally told myself that once my contract is over at the job that I'm at, that I wanted to go and volunteer at that project for a month, just because it just looks absolutely amazing. And the I volunteered at a place years ago. It was like 2018, and I just had the absolute most amazing time. So I was like, okay, I definitely want to go do some sort of project again. And I think I've like just heard or known of I've known of track for a while. So it was cool to actually meet people and just kind of talk to them about it. And it's just a little bit different than looking at their website and seeing what they offer. But no, Robin seems super cool, and I was like, yeah, I definitely would like to go spend a month there and just dive every day and just live on an island. Sounds like an absolutely amazing time. So.
Yeah, and it's like, as a long-term volunteer, like, you can really see the impact of some of the work that you would have done, So we do a mix of like planting coral and like trying different experimental methods. Like, I remember how they started off was they collected all of these liquor bottles, like whiskey bottles and beer bottles, and making like artificial reefs out of them, and then installing it on the reef slope. And so that started attracting so much coral. So there is like, there's a whole amount of reefs that are built on whiskey bottles that are there. So that looks super cool. And then also one of the projects I was involved in, and this is like about I think it was 5 years ago, was installing these things called artificial reef crests because the bombs had destroyed the coral, so there's nothing really holding the slope because it's a sloping reef. So there's a lot of slope erosion. So it's the same thing like on land when you cut down forests on hill slopes, right? There's nothing holding the soil, so you have massive amounts of erosion. So these reef crests, it's called the arc reef, so artificial reef crests. They're built along the point of the slope where it starts sloping down, so it helps to control a bit of the erosion. And so I was involved in installing a lot of those, and it's really cool because you build these like things made out of a whole mix of materials, like again liquor bottles that we fill with water, and then pieces of dead coral, and other materials that we could put together, and we could like actually form a mold and a structure. And then we take the structure out, we install it on the reef with some rebar. So we're doing some underwater like hammering and underwater commercial diving, not welding or anything, not too dangerous, but just like installations. And then we started planting coral on them. And now I go back to it like 4 or 5 years down the track, and you're like, I did that, and you see these coral colonies forming on it. You'd really feel like this sense of pride. And then we also were doing like surveys along all the artificial coral reefs that we had built. So whether it was the bottle reefs or the arc reefs, and studying the fish populations and the invertebrate populations as well. So track has all that data. I just know that they're too busy to publish a lot of that data, but it's there. And I've been like, guys, come on, you need to be able to publish this, because it'll be great for volunteers to see what they're contributing to. So that's really, and you as you go back year after year and you see the growth of the marine life, it's so heartening. And like now they even saw, like a couple of weeks ago, there was like 2 whale sharks hanging out there. Oh. And I was like, because I'm in the WhatsApp group, and I'm like, I don't need to see this. I really don't need to see this. But yeah, they were like, whale shark guys, next boat out, go, go, go. And then like there's always eagle rays around there, so I've seen quite a few. So yeah, like you see the marine life coming back, and it's really, really rewarding. And then also what was super interesting was during the COVID lockdowns, because obviously, everything was closed, but a small group stayed back at track. So the 2 science officers and the local staff. And because none of the other like 3 or 4 resorts on the island all were closed, so they had switched off the lights. And so there is a stretch behind on the other side of Pom Pom, which there's nothing there. There's no resorts there. And that's where normally the turtles come to nest. And because there was no light pollution, there was no boat traffic, the turtles were like, it's sexy time. And they were just like popping out eggs left, right, and center. And I remember when I went during that short break when things opened up, one night it was like a maternity hospital. There were like 4 turtles laying eggs, and we were running in between these 4 to collect their eggs and take it to the hatcheries. And if I'm not mistaken, and you can check this with Robin when you talk to him, or if you want to invite him to the podcast as well, but you can check with him. But from what I remember, that 2 years they collected and hatched over 30,000 turtle eggs. Wow. So 30,000 hatchlings, because there was no boat traffic, there was no light pollution. So it was really good for conservation. And and if I'm not mistaken, again, they're trying to get that data across the Sabah parks, if they haven't done already, to kind of justify why there shouldn't be further resorts being built on that island, because it's such an important turtle habitat. And really contributing to the population. So I would highly recommend you to go to track. I love the place. I go back every year. So and if you do, like, you go there, you volunteer for 1 or 2 months, and then you go back every year, you can really see the impact of what you've done, and it's really rewarding.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome. And actually, so I was supposed to record with Robin last week, but we had some scheduling issues. What's the best time of year to go there?
I always go back during Christmas and New Year. But I've been there in I went last year in May. I think you can go any time of year because because it's like quite sheltered from the impacts of the monsoon that we get in West Malaysia. So like diving in Sabah, you can go all year round.
Okay.
It's just, in just this December, you may get a couple of storms and track is amazing, but you do stay intense. And if you're hanging your laundry outside, it will get wet. I remember one year I was there, it was 1 week of continuous rain and everybody ran out of dry clothes. Which was interesting. And then we were like, can we please take our stuff to Semporna to dry? But yeah, you can go all year round. It's great.
Cool. Last couple of questions for you, because I'm actually curious, because one of my biggest concerns is with the rebreather. One of my biggest concerns with the rebreather is the traveling aspect of a rebreather. And it seems like you like to travel quite a bit too. Have you figured out how you're gonna bring the JJ around?
Not yet. That is part of that. We will find that out in November. Because right now the unit that I'm buying will be in Gili Trawangan. Because the guy that I'm buying from, he's still using it, and he's gonna leave the island in a couple of weeks' time. So then he'll leave the unit behind for me. And I'll go back in November and I will service it together with one of the instructors. And then, I have to figure out how to bring it back. But like Sam, he has a technique that he takes it apart. He puts the head in his carry-on and then the aluminum frame into the suitcase. But I'm not sure what he does with the first stages, with whether he also puts that into his carry-on. So I'm going to have to learn this. But my other friend who died, now he's got the Liberty side mount rebreather. I'm a bit jealous. Yeah. And he's planning to do that thing looks amazing. He sent me a photo and I'm like, oh, okay, calm down. But he previously was diving with the Pelagian. I don't know how it's pronounced, but it's also a back mount, fully manual CCR. And what he was, when we traveled last year together, he put the whole thing in his backpack and pretended that it was really light, but it was super heavy.
Oh, for carry-on?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think I'm just going to ask Sam to teach me what he does, but I think most likely we'll travel with the more sensitive parts like the head and the first stages in my carry-on, wrap it with clothes, and I think it should be fine.
Okay. Cool.
I'll let you know.
Yeah, because I'm curious, because that's one of my biggest concerns is, especially where I live, I'm like, if I get a rebreather, I need to be able to figure out travel wise how I'm going to do it. And there's definitely some on the market. Like I was talking to obviously Mark about the Revo, just because I know a lot of people dive that unit and a lot of people will travel with it. You got obviously you have to kind of take it apart. The Liberty is another one that people claim that travels pretty friendly. It's pretty travel friendly, I should say. And then there's just a lot of other rebreathers on the market, and to be honest, that's another reason why I was kind of looking at like the Sidewinder or the Gemini, because I think it's like when the unit's all put together, it's like 20, maybe like 14 kilos max, or under 20. And it's like you see people, they'll just put them in their carry-on and go wherever they need to go, minus the cylinders. But that's what's nice about the Sidewinder or the Gemini. But then it's the whole should I start on a side mount unit type thing, which there's a lot to figure out. But definitely please let me know. And then
I will do.
my final question I want to ask before I let you go is, so someone that started with a fear of water and you're at where you're at now, what advice would you give to somebody that would be in your early shoes, where they're like not so sure, they're kind of scared of it? What piece of advice could you give to that person?
Okay, I would definitely say find an instructor who's very supportive of, and understanding of your fears. Because I think that really helped me a lot. Because my open water instructor in Tioman, she was amazing. Actually, she's the one who eventually got me into track. She was really supportive with the whole hand holding and, working on my fears. things like that. So if you can find an instructor who's supportive, so when you're shopping around for an instructor, share your fears with them and see how they react. And if they're being very supportive, then you should go with them. And then I would say, yeah, definitely stick to it because it is amazing. And you meet so many great people, like your social circle just widens. I think most of the people who I'm friends with now are divers. And so it just opens up a new world to you. And so keep at it, keep practicing. And if you're still nervous, like go where you feel safe. And that's what I'm doing now with the rebreather, actually, because it still intimidates me. So I'm just going back to where I learned it, where I know I have a good support system and I feel safe. And I think as an open water diver, especially if you're living in a country where diving is quite accessible, like Malaysia, and you learned in a particular dive center and you're really happy with them, maybe go back there, get comfortable with the crew there, with the diving, and then that'll help you build your confidence. And then as you move forward, I would definitely say start challenging yourself incrementally, like go to different places, different conditions. Don't get scared of currents. I know a lot of people are scared of currents, but learn to how to manage it. So I would say slowly, incrementally build your skills and do it where you feel safe.
Wonderful, great words of advice.
Thanks.
So I really, really want to thank you again for coming on to the podcast. And I really look forward to when we can actually get in the water and dive together. Hopefully we'll both be on rebreathers because like I said, it's in my near future. It's just, I don't, a lot of training and dollars to put down before that.
Yes. And also make sure you have backup SMBs because even I lost my SMB on a dive recently, and those things, the nice ones aren't cheap, so get ready for those. Yeah. Okay.
Maybe I'll buy some cheap ones for the classes and then save the good ones for when I get better.
I think that's a good idea. Yeah, but Nick, thank you so much for inviting me. I mean, it's really good talking to you, and I really enjoy your podcast as well. So it's quite an honor to be part of it.
Off-gassing, a scuba podcast.